This is how I choose to spend my Saturday nights. I don't know if it's a choice exactly, but... Hello everybody, I'm Sarah. We're gonna talk about... Well, I have it titled as What You Repeatedly Do. I spoke about these things in some of the other videos, but I wanted to expand on a few of these ideas, mostly as it relates to my field of work, which is behavior therapy. I'm a behavior tech. I think I said I was a behavior therapist, but I'm actually a behavior tech at a school. I work with special needs kids. And also the idea of cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, and that they go hand in hand. They're based on similar concepts. I've actually been interested in them since before I knew what they were. It was something that I came across in, I think it was a documentary or something that I watched, and they were talking about ABA, which is part of behavior therapy. And I said, well, that's super interesting, but I never really looked into it until I started working at the school, and I was given the opportunity to get involved more into the behavior therapy. And then it became very clear to me the utility of these things. I had encountered these things in other places, especially with people I'd known who had gone to certain therapists who were using things such as cognitive behavior therapy, CBT. But again, I hadn't technically looked into it all that much, but I probably should have. It was one of those things where I didn't know what I was looking for. So when I was given the opportunity to do it, I jumped on it because I suddenly knew what it was that I was so interested in. And I'm going to talk to you about that because my coworkers make fun of me about this because I always try to suggest to them, well, if you try to do this a little bit differently, you can have this effect. Or if you try to implement behavior therapy, or as it would be in the non-classroom setting, for us at least, cognitive behavior therapy, you would maybe see a better result in this thing that you're trying to do. For example, eating better, or exercising more, or having your children do the laundry or something to that effect. I've encountered a few situations. They laugh at me, but I'm totally serious. I'm totally serious when I'm talking about this sort of thing because I find it to be absolutely thrilling that there is so much that can be done with these ideas. Cognitive behavior therapy is a therapy that you might see in a therapist's office. They use it for a variety of different conditions to a varying degree of efficacy, but it is very helpful, assuming that you have the right setup and the right program for things such as depression and anxiety. It's been used widely, and it generally tends to try to replace your negative or unhelpful thoughts with something that is more workable or a better thought or a more useful thought. So instead of thinking, I'm terrible, I'm lousy, I can't do anything good, I'm just this useless thing walking through the earth, you work usually in a slowly and methodic process to get to a point where you are having better thoughts by implementing small changes. We talked about the small changes before. One of the places where you can see this very easily is in the treatment of phobias. I know you've seen the sort of thing where somebody comes in with a fear of elevators, for example. I think Peterson actually talks about this a couple of times, but they come in with a fear of getting onto an elevator, and what do? Well, you take it down to the smallest possible actionable goal. So it might be that you go into the building that has an elevator if it's that bad of a phobia. It might be that you get within 10 feet of the elevator. It might be that you stand right in front of it. It might be pushing the button, and it might be walking into it. Of course, the ultimate goal is to be able to use the elevator appropriately and without fear, or at least with a minimized amount of fear. And by the way, just as a side note, the opposite of fear is courage. You get over your fear by becoming brave and doing the thing that makes you scared. Side note over. So the behavior therapies in general are a set of therapies that focus on addressing maladaptive or otherwise undesirable behaviors and stopping them by interrupting them usually with a more desirable behavior, or to change the environment so that a better behavior is implementable, and to reinforce that behavior so that you can more often see that behavior as opposed to the previous one. You can also reduce the other behavior by ignoring it. You can reduce the other behavior by simply giving a positive reinforcement, which is to give more attention to the desired behavior as opposed to the undesired behavior. So, for example, if you're talking about somebody who has very depressing thoughts, you might, for example, give a lot of praise to this person for having a good thought, and you might give a lot of attention to that good thought as opposed to giving a lot of attention to the bad thought. Or you might say, oh, she had a bad thought, we're going to completely ignore that. And you get no attention for that. You get all of the reinforcement, all of the positive reinforcement for the preferred reaction. This is very much related to the field that I work in, which is the ABA, the Applied Behavior Analysis, which is what the behavior techs do, particularly in schools or in settings where they're working with kids who most frequently this is seen with students, children, people, I guess, who have autism. It's very useful for that. I think I read that it was one of the, if not the only approved method of addressing the concerns of autism because of its utility in doing so. The idea with the behavior therapies is that you had some behavior that happened, you had a neutral behavior, and then you had some reinforcement directly after that. And you can sort of see this in Pavlov. So the dog eats something and he gets a shock, or the dog eats something and he gets pet. So the dog who gets pet is going to associate eating with positive things, and the dog who got shocked is going to avoid food to the point where he can be seriously ill. The process of ABA uses that along with a number of other workable solutions to interrupt the conditioned behavior. You're talking about something that they call operant conditioning. So you have this behavior, and before you have the opportunity for it to get reinforced in the way that it would naturally, I guess, you sort of, I guess you could say, contrive a different reinforcement. So in the classroom, for example, especially with the very high needs kids, we often use a token system. If you do these 5 desirable behaviors, you will get something that you want. I work with several kids right now who are very motivated by their snack or their lunch. So we say, I usually save the stuff that they don't want to do for what they are going to do to earn their snack. For example, they don't like handwriting, so we do handwriting right before snack. They don't like typing on the computer necessarily, so we do that to earn snack. One of them doesn't like to use a calculator, so we do that right before snack because it's highly reinforcing. It's something that they really look forward to. We will often try to do these things called preference assessments so that you can figure out what will motivate a kid to do something that is a desired behavior. And you want to find something that's highly reinforcing so that you can have the best positive reinforcer for the desired behavior. And that's what it is. It's not necessarily a positive or negative behavior. It's desired or undesired. You don't necessarily want to associate a judgment with it. It's just something that you would prefer to have happen or you would less prefer to have happen. Pounding on the table is one, screaming out is one, hitting friends is one. These are things that you do with your own children, that you do with children in your life naturally. The funny thing about behavior therapies is it's all very natural. We all do it. Well, to a certain degree with each other. We do it with people in our lives. We do it with people that we know. If somebody does something that you don't like, you will generally respond to them in a way that shows them that you are dissatisfied with that. And if they are at all aware of themselves, they adjust their behavior because of that. This is something that was observed many, many years ago, and it's very natural. It's something that we do often without thinking about it, and particularly with kids. We usually say that, for example, if you hit your brother, you're going to lose your dessert today. If you do something that I don't like, you're going to lose something that you want. If you do this thing I want you to do, you're going to get something good. Giving a kid an allowance is a pretty good example of that. If you do these desired behaviors and you do them consistently, you're going to get money or some other desired thing. The only difference between these behavior therapies and your natural status of doing these things is that sometimes the conditions to reinforce the behaviors are contrived, or there are specific methods of going about the enforcement of the desired behavior. It's the sort of thing that you can do in your own life. For example, if you notice yourself having a lot of disturbing thoughts or unhelpful thoughts are things that make you not like yourself, if you notice yourself lying consistently, if you notice the fact that people tend to have a negative reaction to you for one reason or another, that's when you can say, wait a minute, I have an opportunity here. I can change this if I put some effort in. The difference between the kids I'm working with in school and somebody who's perhaps trying to do these cognitive behavior therapies on their own is that I'm there to reinforce the behavior on the kid. I'm there to set the standards so that the kid has his aim. The teacher is there to write the standards that we can all work within so that we can find the desired behaviors and find the methods of going about achieving them. Somebody who is working with a therapist, for example, the therapist is only there for however long the session is in that week session, and then it's on the person to take care of the rest of it. It's on the person to continue the positive associations. It's on the person to make the changes. It's on the person to disengage with the undesired behaviors, and that is very difficult to do. If you're talking about taking responsibility for things, it's something that people are adverse to, probably because it's difficult. Nobody particularly likes to do difficult things, not automatically by any stretch of the imagination. It's something that you sort of train yourself into. You train yourself to do difficult things, and by training yourself to do difficult things, they become easier. I used the example the other day about the kid who's learning how to write. He might have to go back to learning how to hold the pencil, but as he learns the ability to hold the pencil, everything else after that becomes easier. You have to start at the smallest possible actionable goal and then move from there. You have the ability to do big things to change your life. You have the ability to figure out things that will completely change you. You have the ability to determine the things that you want changed and then go about changing them. And I'm going to expound on what I'd said before. You take a small goal, the smallest goal that you think you can do, that you can action, that you can achieve. You have to be able to achieve it. You personally have to be able to achieve it. You go out and you do that. You break your big goal into all of these tiny little incremental steps, and you keep going up this ladder. And for example, in the classroom, we usually use 5 trials over a certain period of days. For kids who have a harder time getting concepts, it might be 3 days or 4 days. For kids who have a little bit of an easier time picking up concepts, it might be 2 days in a row of getting, they usually say 80% or above. So you have, most of the time, you are doing the preferred behavior. You are getting the answer that is desired. You are doing the thing that you want done. So how can you start taking responsibility for your own life? How do you apply these things to be able to improve yourself, or to take on your responsibilities, or to do something that you want to do, whatever that is? Let's take cooking, for example. I know an awful lot of people who go, I have no idea how to cook. I know people who rely on those meal services, which I feel like it has to be expensive. It certainly isn't economical in the sense that the packaging is wasteful. Everything about it just seems wasteful to me. And then on top of that, you have the ability to do these things. It's just a matter of getting out there and doing it. I mean, I know people who eat out all the time, period, without having a meal service. It's something that you have the ability to do, that people have done forever prior to these days and the conveniences that we have. And the fact is, it's more convenient than it's ever been to cook. So let's say you want to learn to cook. Let's say you have a phobia of cooking. I actually know somebody who pretty much has a phobia of cooking, and she's actually a little bit intellectually impaired. And she says, I don't want to go near the stove. I'm afraid I'm going to burn myself. I says, well, here's the thing. You start with something small. And you start with going to the stove and doing something very simple. Melt the butter, and then I'll make the egg, for example. And then you go on to melt the butter, and then crack the egg into it, and then I'll finish up. And then you go on to melt the butter, crack the egg, turn it over, and watch it so that you can see if it's up to the cooked level that you want, and then you put it into a dish and you're done. Or you do something like pasta, where it's as simple as boiling the water and learning what a boiled pot looks like, and then putting the pasta in, and then learning what finished pasta looks like. That's pretty straightforward. You start there. And then from there, you do bigger things. You learn how to cook meat. You learn how to cook a variety of different vegetables. You learn how to cook a number of different recipes in a variety of different ways, and that is how you become better at things. But you start with the basics and the smallest possible steps that you can to get the confidence and to build your skills so that you can move on to the other things that are harder to do. Another example where this often comes up is there's all of those talks about just change your mindset on things and it'll change your life. They're not far off. That's actually part of cognitive behavior therapy. The idea is that you change the way that you look at things, and by doing so, you're going to find it easier to look at things in that better way. So, if you are the kind of person who is simply a negative Nancy? The kind of person who always has terrible things to say and can't see the positive side of things and doesn't want to see the positive side of things and is kind of lame to be around because of that, you should probably work on that. Well, how do you work on that? You think, well, I just can't change. It's just the way I am. I'm just a negative person. No, thank you. You are not. You are capable of being not negative. You are capable of changing your behavior. Your behavior is to respond in negative ways to situations. Your behavior is to have a negative response to something. Well, how do you change that? If you happen to be depressed, by the way, all of this you should probably talk about with an actual therapist, preferably somebody who is familiar with CBT so that they are able to walk you through this process and set up a program maybe so that you can get the most benefit from doing this. But if you just want to have the possibility of starting somewhere or getting somewhere a little bit before you do anything else, well, I'll help you out with that. Let's talk about how you change your mindset on things. It's something that I did. You have to want it, though, and that's the hardest part. There is no paraprofessional there to make sure that you do your work. It's on you. So if you want something positive to happen, then you need to change the way that you're looking at it. If you want something good, you need to actually want it. You have to be willing to do the work. That's the responsibility. You have the right to happiness as long as you take on the responsibility of doing the work to maintain it, right? So you are just terribly negative. Everything is awful and you just can't stand it and you can't deal with it and you have no idea how to change it. Well, the way that I looked at it was you find the things that are worth being positive about. It's a little cliche, but there are a lot of people who are a little bit religious and they say, I'm grateful for this day. I am grateful for this food. I am grateful for my friends, my family, and all of this. That's a really good outlook to have, to be grateful for things that you have been given by pure chance or luck or circumstance or happenstance. That's great. Be grateful for that. Start there. Instead of taking these things as a given, taking them for granted and not seeing them as the gift that they are from whatever source that you prefer to think, that you recognize them as the gift that they are. You start there and you say, I am thankful for this, I am grateful for this, and it is a good thing that I have these things. And then maybe from there you think about something else. You think, well, I had a really good interaction with somebody today, and that was really great. I never expected I was going to speak to Joe in the way that I did. I didn't expect to connect with him the way that I did. Oh, that lady on the telephone today was really nice. I'm so glad that happened. And then from there, you start seeing the better things in life. And the thing is, as your disposition becomes more positive and you don't always have a scowl on your face, people are more likely to be pleasant with you. They're more likely to have positive interactions with you so that you can respond positively. It's really cool the way that works out. So you have this building, this thing that keeps building on itself, which is because you're doing the work. And you can get to the point where you have a much better outlook on life, and because of that, things start to come to you, and you start to have positive ideations, that's the word. You start to have positive ideations, you start to have the outlook that things are probably going to be okay, even when they do go kind of sour, even when, well, let's be honest, things are kind of like they have been for a little bit recently, where it hasn't been great and it felt very out of control for a lot of people, myself included, okay? You have to find the parts of it that are worth sticking around for and hold on to them pretty tightly. And the things that you have control over, you need to really get control over. You need to really take responsibility for the things that you are able to do. And it all goes down to what you repeatedly do. That's what I originally titled this, what you repeatedly do. I saw this really terrible, terrible advertisement for, I think it might have been Amazon. No surprise there. They said, you are what you repeatedly buy. No, I'm sorry. They said, you are what you buy. And I thought, what an awful message. What a terrible thing to say to people. I get it. We have some consumeristic tendencies around here. We are definitely a capitalist society, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with being a capitalist society, but there is something wrong with greed. And there's certainly wrong to be found in saying that you are what you buy. There is very little to be found that is positive in what you buy. If you work hard for something and you deserve something through extreme effort and high responsibility, then you can take pride in the fact that you were able to achieve the status of getting that thing, but you certainly aren't that thing. You are what you repeatedly do. So, this is the behavior therapy. You reinforce whatever behavior you do repeatedly. So, if you find yourself repeatedly being negative, if you find yourself repeatedly being lazy, if you find yourself repeatedly doing something that you don't want to do, you are reinforcing that behavior because you are getting some sort of a response that you find to be impactful, something that is reinforcing to you. So what you need to do is to interrupt the things that you repeatedly do, and you need to introduce a new behavior, and you need to be incredibly consistent about this. Like, there's a few different things. 21 days to break a bad habit or learn a new skill, or I think another one is 3 months. It depends on who you're looking at and what the skill is, I guess. The point, though, is that you have this ability to retrain something that is a behavior. You are what you repeatedly do. If you want something to change, you need to do it over and over and over and over again. Something that is so irritating to me are people who are incredibly overweight, and they say, well, I tried all of the diets and they just didn't work for me, so I gave up. And the thing is, I've known people who have done all of the diets. First of all, those diets that you pay for, or these schemas that are out there, I guess they work for some people, but for the overwhelming majority of people, there's a very simple way to do this. Eat better and eat less. What you've trained your body to do in the situation where you are so heavy is you are very likely eating far too much, and you are also very likely eating stuff that is very not good, and those things together equal a lot of calories, and that equals weight gain or high weight maintenance. It's something that you don't want. It's something that is not good for your body. It is something that, quite frankly, is not good for society as a whole. Obesity is a really great place to see this sort of thing implemented. One of the things that cognitive behavior therapy is used for is in people who have eating disorders, whether that is too much or too little food. And in the case of having too much food, you reinforce the sort of behaviors that you have when you are overeating, when you're eating the wrong thing and you're eating a lot of it, with better behaviors. Instead of having a bowl of ice cream 2 times a day, have a bowl of nuts, or you change your behaviors and you get different results. Whereas if you continue doing your behaviors that are leading to bad results or undesirable results or things that you don't want to happen, then you need to repeatedly do other things. And that is the idea behind the behavior therapies, more or less. One of the reasons that I find the behavior therapies to be so interesting is because of how unbelievably powerful they are. It gives so much to the individual to say, I have done this and I have been successful and I did it because I worked hard and I found out what it was that I wanted to work for and I did it. I went for it and I got it. And I think that's great. I think that is one of the best ways to prove that you are an adult, that you are a responsible person, that you are useful to society, that you have good morals. And that's the funny thing about it too, is morals are also something that you repeatedly do. If you want to be a moral person, just do those moral things. And it's all put together. If you repeatedly have bad policies, for example, you're going to repeatedly see bad results. It's everywhere, this stuff. What you repeatedly do is what you repeatedly get. That's the point. And I am so certain that every single person is able to get whatever it is that they want as a better behavior, as a better result, simply by doing hard work. Simply by doing hard work. That's kind of silly, right? Simply by doing hard work. Yeah, you can do it, and I know you can do it. You are fully capable, and I fully believe in you because I've seen these things work. And I know that everybody can do this if they put their mind to it. Now, if you want to know more about it, if you want to get a little bit more specific, if you want particular examples, let me know. We'll talk about it. But if you want the basics, start with a goal, the thing that you want to achieve, and make it into small steps that you can do, and then start it and stick to it. And you can give yourself little rewards every so often. You can give yourself, your favorite dessert once a week or something if you follow through every day doing what you're supposed to do, something like that. The reward system is really good in reinforcing behaviors, especially until they become so routine that you don't have to think about it. And that's the point that you want to get to. You want to get a behavior so routine that you don't have to think about it. You are all capable, you can all do it, and this is so exciting to be able to do it. Show everybody what you're made of. Show yourself what you're made of, and do something great. Do something that you don't think you can do. Change yourself in a way that is positive for yourself and for everyone around you, and take on your responsibilities, become moral, be the sort of person that allows for good faith to exist in the world. Brought it all together. How do you like that? Seriously, it's something that excites me so much, and I would love to hear from everybody who does take something on and tries to do something about it. Tell me about it, email me, I don't care, write in comments, do whatever you want to contact me. I want to hear about it. Go out there and do great things and become better. And that's it. I'll see you next time. Oh, P.S. I'm probably going to do a little something over on Rumble.